gosh, my hair.
Little wind blown. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. How is it going? How are you, Katie? I feel like I haven't talked live in a little while.
Yes, hanging in there, hanging in there.
Yeah.
I'm going through some personal stuff, so
Yeah.
it's been a challenging week. You can see it in my face. I look a little haggard.
It's the crazy curls in the hair. I love it.
Crazy curl. Yeah. But I'm doing okay. I'm happy to be here. I've all week, every night this week, I've had things to look forward to. So this was
Good.
one of those things that I was looking forward to.
Good.
Yeah.
I literally finished reading this book like 7:20, 7:30. I was like, oh my word, I'm really cutting it close this time.
No, I don't remember, Krista. Is this a book that you've read before?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a reread for me.
Okay.
Did I still cry? 1000%.
Yeah, I cried too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
This was my first time though, but I
okay.
just loved it so much.
Good. Well, we are sad to say Amanda's got a lot going on right now and she cannot join us tonight. Yeah, in the process of some family stuff and whatever as well. And she's the one that pushes this into everybody's hands. And so she was so bummed, but it just, she needed something off of her plate. And we're like, take this off your plate.
Take this off your plate.
Yeah. So she's really, really bummed because she really wanted to come and talk about this book with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But also glad to be free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so yeah, we're gonna talk about everything else in the universe. Is this your first time reading it? Have you read it before?
Yeah, I'm curious what people are saying here too.
It's kind of one that flew under the radar. It came out in 2018, I believe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I don't know. I had never heard of it until Amanda like raved about it.
Yeah.
But I did read her other book, The Secret Hum of a Daisy. Honestly, I don't remember it at all.
Really?
I remember that I liked it when I finished it, but I could not tell you one single thing about it right now.
Yeah. I feel like I'd heard of it before Amanda, maybe because I'd heard of A Secret Hum of a Daisy. So although I hadn't read either, but Amanda was the first person that I knew who read it. And when she read it, she was over the moon about it.
Right.
And I've wanted to read it ever since then. And I'm so glad that I finally did.
Good.
Yeah. But I wonder, is The Secret Hum of a Daisy also historical fiction? Do you know?
Like I said,
I don't remember anything about it.
I don't remember anything about it. I feel like it was more contemporary.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong about that.
Okay. Has anyone in the chat, have any of you read The Secret Hum of a Daisy?
I mean, I can look it up. I'll tell you right now.
The Secret Hum of a Daisy. First time.
Secret Hum of a Daisy search. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, it's not historical.
Okay. My impression was that it wasn't historical.
Mother and daughter are kind of transient, moving from place to place to place. Grace wants to have a place to call her own. Gets the courage up to talk to her mom about it. And then, the mom suddenly dies.
Huh.
Grace has to live with a grandmother that she never knew.
Okay.
And then kind of goes on a treasure hunt, kind of to learn a little bit more about her mom.
So I feel like there's some like crossover themes in here. Treasure hunt, living with grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's a different time and place. But clearly I take it, Krista, that since you didn't remember that one, you like this one better.
Yeah. I love this one.
Yeah.
But even when I was reading it, I mean, I could have told you generally what this one is about.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I
But
think you
yeah,
probably,
yeah.
you had more of a memory of what it was like.
Let's just say hello to some friends. Hi,
Yeah, let's do that. Hey, Kat.
Looking forward to talking tonight. Oh man,
You had a great connection with this book then.
how cool. And Aunt Rosie who crocheted doilies. Very cool. I love that.
The Italian family in this book was just
They were so
loved the
precious.
Italian.
Yeah. Tears and all.
Yeah.
You're not late. You're here. Hello. Finished today too. Also my first time and last. Oh, Teresa.
Clearly not her favorite.
I guess not.
I'm here for it though. I want to know
Yeah.
what didn't work for people, if there were people that didn't like it.
Really enjoyed it, Pam. Never would have picked it up if it weren't for you guys. Thank you. Thank Amanda. This is my first time and I loved it. I read it for the first time in March. Okay. Not quite done. Oof.
Well,
you might get spoiled.
Get some spoils.
Say,
We'll
Kimmy,
try and tell you before we spoil anything.
Be prepared. Rushed finding the family over too fast. Would have liked more from the dad too. I could see that. Hello. I'm trying to finish the book. Okay. Tammy, well, hello whenever you are able to watch. I looked and the author also has a third book. Yeah, I saw that as well. What's it called? I think I might have it.
I'm going to look it up. I'm curious to read more of her books since I enjoyed this one so much.
Yeah. Katie didn't get to finish wrapping up end of semester, but hope to finish it soon.
Okay. Brave in the Woods.
Yeah. I saw that.
Oh, it looks like a in Harry Potter, what's the name of that? The
Patronus.
Patronus. It's like Patronus on the cover there.
Teresa thought it started being really boring and not enough with or about dad.
Oh.
Yeah, so let's get into it. What did you really like about it? Like, you really loved it, right, Katie?
I really loved it.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really put this together, but I tend to really like Vietnam War stories. I haven't read a ton, but like Gary Schmidt often writes, his books often have, and he's another middle grade author, and his books often have to do with the Vietnam War. And from a kid's perspective and what they're dealing with. I like stories that take place in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. Maybe partially because kids in the 60s and 70s, there was no technology. So I always like a story where there's no technology.
Right.
Because it just feels, I just miss the days before everyone had cell phones and that ran our lives. Yeah. But anyway, so that's really not why I loved the book. I loved getting the perspective. So in the Gary Schmidt books that I've read, it deals with the Vietnam War, but I felt like this was a different aspect that I hadn't seen portrayed in a book yet. I really loved getting the perspective of a kid whose dad was in Vietnam and getting the feel from a kid's perspective of family and community who weren't supporting Vietnam vets. I have people in my life who fought in the Vietnam War. My uncle fought in the Vietnam War. My husband's father fought in the Vietnam War. And these men carried that experience with them for the rest of their life. Not only the trauma from the war, but also the trauma from the way they were treated when they came home. And it really affected them. And there was just something about this book and the way that was handled. And like that, the moment in the book, I know we'll get into all of this, so maybe I should save it, but I felt that righteous anger like boiling up inside of me at a few places in the book. And I don't know, I just always like a book that makes me feel those intense emotions.
Yeah, and I love a book that handles grief in all kinds of different ways,
Yes.
and this absolutely is a book that you see grief all over, like
Yeah.
the PTSD and the dad and the mom trying to figure things out. I mean, we only just get her through her daughter's eyes, but and the girl herself, like having her dad go off to war and then moving and leaving her friends behind and having to adjust being in a new place. God love a librarian who helped her out as best she could, but also tried to challenge her to make friends. Like,
Yeah.
But this girl really, and I found one article right at the end where like the setting of this book is the war, but it's really not as much about the war as it is about our girl. I forget her name too. Teresa, you're not the only one. Lucy, for the first time having a major change in her life with the move and the dad being gone and then the dad coming home and like having to adjust to life being different than it was 12 months ago.
And that, I mean, that's kind of how all Vietnam books, middle grade books are. It's not really about the war, because how can it?
Right.
Unless it's taking place in Vietnam, where the kids are like literally, dealing with the actual
the women.
war. Right.
The women
I haven't read yet. I actually feel like
I just finished it. Like that's
did you feel like, because I feel like it would be a great companion novel. Like if you
it's very different, but it definitely
But I think it does deal, right? Someone told me that it dealt
a
little bit with how vets were treated.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But something you said reminded me of this quote that's at the very end, but it doesn't spoil anything. How could Lucy explain, this is like touching on some of that grief. How could Lucy explain that somehow they weren't together and how could Lucy explain that somehow they were together and not together at the very same time? That it didn't really matter if a body was next to you, if the heart was 10,000 miles away.
Oh.
Yeah. But that grief of like her father came home, but her father came home not the same. And there's that really tender moment where she's talking with her dad and she says, "You promised that you'd come back."
He's like, "I'll try. I will." Like, I'm working on it. This is what trying looks like right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I welled up with tears there too.
Yeah.
But I do feel like this is and about friendships, about her realizing that in order to have a friend, you have to be a friend.
Yes.
That she's the one that has separated herself. And maybe she kind of, as she began to see things with a bigger perspective, like the boys who were teasing her, but they weren't really teasing her. That's just how they were with everybody. And she realized, like, as she played that game and then later realized, oh, they weren't really just picking on me. That's just kind of how they are.
That's just how they were. And then looking back at the, like, what did she call the girl? The Dandelion Girls?
The Dandelion Girls, yeah.
And how, like, her reaction to, I can't remember the one girl's name.
I don't either, but the one whose cousin was fighting. And she's like, well, that's just your cousin. That's not the same.
Right. And then coming to realize that her reaction was pushing a potential friend away. They could have had a point of connection rather than like that was a moment where she could have found a friend and found some comfort from someone else who was going through something
similar.
Hard too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This is kind of a gentle way to introduce kids to some of the issues of this era.
Yeah.
It makes me honestly want to talk. Like immediately when I finished The Women, I called my mom because I'm like, I've never talked to her. She was a teenager during this time. So she was young, but like
she was like Gia's age.
Right. So I'm like, well, what do you remember? She's like, honestly, we just didn't know much of what was going on. I was like, well, did you know people who did you protest or did you know people who did? And she's like, yeah, she did. And my uncle, one of my uncles, I think she said he was at Kent State.
Oh, really?
I'm like, oh my word. I can't wait to talk to Uncle Joel. I need to find out. So I'm like, I'm so curious now to talk to some of my aunts and uncles who were alive during that time period.
Yeah.
It's just not something that ever casually gets brought up in conversation. Oh yeah, like, what was your experience during the Vietnam War? Like,
well, and a lot of like the vets themselves, most of them wouldn't talk about it.
Right.
You know, Steve's dad, my husband's dad, never talked about his experience ever. And same with my uncle. Never, ever talked about his experience. My dad who didn't fight, he was also, so my mom was that was also really fun. And I should probably talk to my mom too, because she was about Lucy's age.
Okay.
Because I think it took place in 1962 or something.
71.
1971. 1971. Right. So my mom was born in 57. So 14.
Yeah, my mom was 55. So she was 16. Yeah. So too young to like, I don't know. Young enough to be old enough to be a bit aware of things that are going on, but still on the young, like Gia's age. Like new early high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also set it in California too, which I thought, I mean, it was a good choice because you think of, there's Kent State, but you also think of like, well, one of my only
the hippies,
but you think of California.
Yeah.
And the hippies in California, and and all of the like music that felt very California and very like all of the protest music that was out in the 70s that was so great. One of my only cultural references for Vietnam is Forrest Gump. So that's how little I really know about it, but but I thought about that. I happened to think about that a lot while I was reading the book was Forrest Gump. Anyway.
Yeah. Jen's read a bunch of Vietnam stories, but don't connect as much as other time periods. Loved the friendship between Milo and Lucy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, Milo. Even though her dad came home, he still wasn't there. Yeah. Yep. So true for so many vets. Why someone might bury their medal. Too painful and their experience was so different. Yeah.
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 I thought it was really interesting too, the way the World War II soldiers treated the Vietnam soldiers.
Yeah.
How, World War II, the soldiers were treated as heroes, and that those soldiers themselves thought of the Vietnam soldiers as, pariahs.
I loved when Grandpa brought her right back to the American Legion and is like, my granddaughter has something to say to you.
I know. I kind of wish that he would have said something to. I was waiting for him to say something. I was like, come on, Gramps, you were in World War II. Speak up.
But I love that he was helping her find.
Yes. I wanted her. I'm glad that like he gave her voice. I just really wanted him to also after she said her piece, I wanted him to then speak up and be like,
say something. Yeah. I like that Lucy realized she had some role in not having friends. Yeah, it is such a good lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Grandfather fought in World War II and he burned everything that he brought home. He never talked about it until his 80s. Wow. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that is a very common experience of war veterans. Yeah. Yeah.
My uncle was in the Vietnam War. He was 18 years old. Helicopter mechanic who ended up being a helicopter gunman.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, same. I've read Butterfly Yellow. It's like a YA book by Tana Lai. Is it Tana? Yeah, who wrote Inside Out and Back Again.
Isn't that one also a little bit about refugees from the Vietnam War?
It is about refugees, yeah. It starts out in Vietnam and how the kids end up in America. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
I still haven't read that one, but I actually got it off my shelf as I was reading this book because I was like, I want to read. Because actually, Katie, interestingly, I'm almost the opposite. Like I've read more books, middle grade books about not the soldiers, but like kids at home dealing with it.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, and a little bit the soldiers, because Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone has a Vietnam vet in it.
Oh, yeah.
The dad is a Vietnam vet.
Okay. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. But it's sort of peripheral. I mean,
lasting illness because of Agent Orange. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, it's a tough time period, like a very emotional time period all around. all
It
around.
is. Yeah, it sure is.
But I know you said that you marked the John Muir quote.
I did.
That has the title in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's at the point where I started marking quotes from that point on, because it's halfway through. It's like literally.
Yeah, it's about halfway through. I went back and marked it. I only started marking towards the end, and I wish that I would have.
Because there was some really, really beautiful writing in like quotes that make you stop and think for a minute. Or like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah. I will just read that John Muir quote, because the theme of connectedness comes up over and over and over again in the book. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest themes.
Sure.
And that has to do with this quote. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. John Muir. Oh, this is really interesting. It connects to something at the very end of the book. Right underneath, she says, those words always put a picture in Lucy's mind, a night sky with shimmering threads connecting stars into constellations. She thought again about her family, how they all seemed connected by invisible string. And then at the very end of the book, where she's with her dad and they're looking up at the night sky and talking about the constellations and their family.
Which is something that they used to do before he went to war. When they were in Chicago.
Yeah.
They couldn't see as many, but they used to lay out and look at the stars together. I'm trying to, I didn't mark like where on the page. I just like marked the page where I have the quotes because I wanted to share some of these that I found.
Oh, I know. This is the first time that I've like actually highlighted in my book. I'm going to start doing that more. I've always been a little afraid to, but no more. I'm going to my books.
Oh, again about the stars on page 155. When Milo brings his telescope and kind of comes to her window and they go out and look at the telescope up at the stars. And he says, did you know it takes millions of years for the light of a star to reach our eyes? It's like looking back in time, like all the days of your life are up there reminding you of what you've survived. And then she kind of reflects on that. She knew beauty. She'd seen it in the brushstrokes of paintings, heard it in the lyrics of a song, or when a bow touched a violin string, but she never felt the beauty of an idea the way she did just then.
Yeah.
Lucy had always seen Dad's leaving up there in the sky, but hadn't considered that everyone else's past was up there too. This idea that she wasn't alone, even in the stars, shifted something inside, reminding her of the time. Yeah, just.
Yeah.
I just love that.
There's a lot of just really deep thoughts, but nothing that felt like a kid wouldn't think about necessarily. Just really lovely reflections.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I did too, pretty early on, but the scene that's a spoiler. So
yeah.
But the scene when he came clean,
that's where I lose.
Oh yeah, I was a puddle on the floor. Puddle on the floor. This quote got me too. And this doesn't have anything to do with the connectedness. There were more. I wanted to have time to go back and mark some of the passages where she reflects on how everything's connected and woven together. And I didn't, because there's a lot. She mentions it a lot in the book. But this goes to how Lucy ended up reflecting on her own friendships. And so this was after she's with her grandfather, and they've just gone back to the the veterans place.
Yeah.
And she stood up for herself, and then they're back in the car and they're driving away. And her grandpa says, "When you look for all the reasons to keep people out, you will find them, Lucy. Look for the reasons to let people in. Look for the connections instead."
Yeah.
And I thought that was just such a profound moment, not only because of what they just experienced with the vets, but also that's so applicable to Lucy and her experience with her friends too. She was keeping friends out. She was looking for reasons to keep people out and not make friends instead of trying to find the connectedness with it. So it does actually relate back to the idea of how everything's connected. But instead of finding those points of connections, instead of looking for ways to let people in.
I wish I had marked these better. Oh, when so Milo loves his dragonflies.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucy is also very intelligent and like knows about rocks and had studied the rocks because the ones her dad sent back got her stuck on that. And I love at the beginning what she liked reading the Encyclopedia Britannica. Or did she have World Book? It's like, was this book?
Yeah.
And then Milo was someone who used Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh, that's right.
Which was just kind of funny because that reminded me back of my days of like having to do research papers in elementary school when we actually did still use encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And stuff like all the little details that gave it a sense of place, like the grandma's pink kitchen and the aqua velvet cologne that she kept putting on herself.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
I want to know what that smells like. I kept being curious.
Like, not good.
Yeah.
Well, it might be. It might not be bad, but so he was talking about Milo's talking about his dragonflies. And I love that he's a good artist too and can draw them and like uses eyeshadow or crushes up mica to make it shimmery. Talking about the dragonflies, he says they eat hundreds of mosquitoes every day. You can tell if the water's healthy based on if they're there or not. Graham says all living things are interconnected that way that we all have useful messages for each other if we just pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy thought about that, about what sorts of messages she might give and receive without even knowing it. So just more and more she's kind of realizing that, because she always talked about how her family was just this big crazy family. She calls them a circus at one point. Like she's a little bit embarrassed almost about how loud and obnoxious they are, and always feeling
like she takes place more like the Millers than the Rossies.
And she's a little bit more on the outside of things, right? But then as the story goes on and realizing how connected she really is and how loved. And, yeah. She just opens up.
Yeah.
I also loved her relationship with Gia and how that developed, because Gia was understandably a teenager at that time and like against the war, but wasn't like rude or I don't know. I feel she didn't do anything that was a no. Like I was not mad at her at any point. Like she just didn't agree with it, and good for her. She's trying to help host a peace.
I did feel the anger. Like I did feel when because she wanted to go to that Air Force base where they threw the vegetables.
Oh yeah.
I was angry about that.
Yeah, that's true. Where the guys were coming home. But she was young enough that did she really know that that's what they were doing?
I don't know. I mean, right, because we don't know. And I also don't remember, did she actually go there or did she just talk about wanting to go there?
I mean, she just wanted to, and Lucy was just mad about that.
Yeah.
But Lucy was just mad in general because of her on her dad's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Josh, Gia's boyfriend, gets drafted.
How it made it much more personal for her.
Yeah, and at that point, Lucy had done all this reflecting about being connected and family, and
Mhm.
and all that, and was able to kind of, even though they never fully talked about everything, which they wouldn't. They're like 12 and 14 years
Yeah.
old, right? Like
Yeah.
they probably wouldn't have had those kind of deep conversations. Maybe they would, but how at the end she just kind of laid on the floor of her room with her and was with. I just thought that was a cool
I did too.
little arc of a
And
storyline.
just like how much Lucy matured over the course of the book too, that she and also because she had been through it, she kind of knew what Gia needed,
Yeah.
what would be good, how she could be supportive of Gia.
Yeah. And I love that the whole family was at the peace rally that Chia was helping to promote.
Mhm.
Like they all went to it.
Mhm.
Um the only other part that I was a little annoyed about was the mom getting the rides home from Roger and like primping her hair like her work friend who brought her home.
Right, and then like laughing and then noticing that
Seeing them and like getting all
it
Uh,
didn't ever become anything.
no.
So
No.
when I first read it, I was like, am I supposed to think that there's something going on, or am I
Yeah.
reading into that?
It was it never wrapped up. But I think it just highlights the difficulty of the situation.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't think we were meant to read into it any more than
Yeah.
the mom. It was probably just like a break of
That's what
thinking
yeah.
about everything for the mom. I don't know. Potentially, it could have been gone that way if this was an adult book, but it's
Right.
not. So, like we didn't go there. But I still was annoyed because they're sitting on the front porch, and mom gets out of the car, primping her hair and smiling,
Yeah.
laughing, and then
Yeah.
sees them and gets all serious after already having fought with dad about Roger a little bit. So I was like, oh, I don't like that. Don't go down this road, Tracy.
Yeah.
Don't do it. But
But then they didn't really. And
no,
it probably really was. And I mean, they really in her like for she did a good job of really sticking to Lucy's perspective and how and Lucy's observations and not pursuing those things that could tangent the story and make it more of an adult story.
right. Which is what I think, Jennifer, you were saying, like you wanted more about the dad and what he was going through, but Lucy wasn't allowed into that.
Right.
We only got from the peripheral side of things his shame, like covering up his stump when she came into the
Mhm.
room, and his like retreating into
His
his
retreating.
bedroom and his like quick anger at times, which are all parts of PTSD. And
Mhm.
well, not speaking from experience, but yeah, just from reading other books. Yeah, just we're only getting, you're right, she does do a good job of sticking to Lucy's perspective.
Yeah. We don't go off on those side trails that as adult readers we probably would want to see more of, but
Right.
we really are really only getting Lucy's perspective
Yeah.
um and yeah. So we don't and it's interesting because as kids are, she's a really caring kid, but she's not and she wants to take care of her dad, but she's not really, as kids do, thinking about what's best for her dad or what's best for her
Right.
mom or what either one of them are really going through.
Right.
Because kids don't do
No.
that. Kids are
No.
little narcissists, they
Right.
think about themselves.
And they just wanna make everything better and back she just wanted to make everything go back to
Everything back to
normal.
normal.
Yeah.
And
How
I'm not saying that as like she wasn't a good kid. She's a really
right.
good kid, but she
Yeah.
just, she was consumed with um, wanting things to go back to normal. And so she might observe her mom in the car laughing, but she didn't follow that trail to
Right.
figure out like what is my mom going through?
Yeah.
How is she feeling? How does she feel when she goes to work? Is
Yeah.
it, like
Yeah.
I bet she gets a break. She gets a chance to step away from how hard things are at home.
Yeah. showed how the mom could have easily left, but did not. You're right. Yep. I love it. It's typical.
I love that too.
This is such a big.
I don't know any Italians
so
really. What?
I didn't know. I loved they're loud and they're in everybody's business. And yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of the family, and this is a Greek family, but in My Big Fat Greek Wedding was just like boisterous, loud, in everybody's business.
Yeah.
And
they
I love
in
it.
the kitchen, like, all right, you come and stir this, you come and do this.
Yeah. And so Wisconsin is very German and Norwegian. And so I don't know like many Italians at all. So I love my only sense of Italian families or Greek families or these other sort of European families are from movies. Yeah. But I love it. I love it. It was so fun to read.
Yeah. I loved when Milo tells Lucy she smells like his PE teacher. Yeah. When she flips in the tomato sauce. I know. I thought that was funny too. And I loved that Gia is the one that helped with the dress and made it tie-dye.
Yes, I loved that too. Which went to show once again that Lucy was only thinking about, she was angry at Gia because Gia wasn't reacting to the war the way that she was.
Right.
But Gia had her own story, and Gia never stopped loving Lucy.
Well, and it's just the natural, like now they're in different schools, like Gia's in high school and Lucy was still in elementary. So like that natural separation that happens as you get a little older.
Yeah.
You don't stop loving each other, but the relationship is going to change.
Yeah.
I like that she compared her feelings out of control with things with her dad to the feeling of being on a giant swing at the carnival. Oh yeah, I remember that. How she hated the swings. It just felt like she was constantly on that swing. Yeah. Oh. There were so many good pictures like that. One of them was like her hair being not like she was, the anger inside of her made her feel all knotted up like a tangled hair.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. I'm like, oh yeah, that's such a good picture.
She had some good metaphors and similes in there. Yeah.
Got worried with the mom getting the ride. Yeah, for sure. Definitely looking at it from an adult perspective, not middle grade. It's hard to remember. It sure is.
It is. Yeah.
Also got worried when Lucy's dad went to the hospital. Yeah. I mean, you saw that coming. I mean, we saw it coming because you could see that he had an infection at home. And he's like, I'm a doctor. What are they going to tell me? Take an antibiotic.
Right.
But it got worse. How frustrating, too, for him to have studied all that time to become a surgeon and then lose an arm and not be able to do what you had planned your whole life. Like, oh,
what you trained for and what you felt like your whole life purpose was, and to have that snatched away from you and have to figure out how to redirect that. Yeah. I worried about that the whole book.
I love that we got a glimpse at the end, though, of him kind of at least addressing, I'll try this. And if that doesn't work,
I'll try this.
Here, I'll figure out where my place is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is right now, but I love that we got a glimpse of, why did that make me emotional? I'm like getting emotional. We got a glimpse of him kind of recognizing too that, like, I mean, obviously life is going to be different and what's he going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted him to go to the camp, like to the house where
I did too. We never got to see that. I didn't actually think, I mean, I thought about that in the middle of the book. I thought that was something that would end up happening.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I was remembering that, but I didn't remember it. Maybe I was remembering wanting that to happen the first time I read too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to get that support. Children have limited abilities in dealing with abstract things. Emotional, mental, and spiritual. They don't. Yeah. So true. I also thought Grandma was going to have a conniption, but she handled it so well too.
She did. Okay, so
I love when Grandma put pockets in the dress.
I did too.
I didn't know the reason. She just
did it.
that Lucy was like liked the dress but was like bummed about no pockets, and so she just sat up and put the pockets in.
At that moment, that's really what softened me toward Grandma Miller, because she's kind of a stiff, seemingly like not affectionate, very judgmental kind of grandma, and that softened me to her, because it showed that she really does, in her own way, care for Lucy.
I think it's hard when you have this big, boisterous, like outwardly loving, expressive Italian family.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast, anybody else is going to feel like they're
stodgy.
Yeah. But honestly, my mom's mom was like a Grandma Miller. Like, not very lovey-dovey. We'd always like kiss her on the cheek when we'd leave or whatever, but it was never like big hugs from Grandma, not cuddling up next to her on the couch. Like, that's just not my mom's side of the family at all. So I really understood. Whereas my dad's family, they're not Italian, but they're definitely more like that side of the family. Loud, big family, everybody involved in everything, all the aunties cooking in the kitchen. Like, definitely has that side of that kind of a feel. So I definitely felt, I'm like, oh, this is like my family.
Yeah.
Like, two sides, very, very different.
Yeah.
But still loving, and still, I love that. Isn't it no, it's not Grandpa Miller. Grandpa Miller took her for a drive.
Yeah. He was I loved him.
The other grandpa took her to the American Legion. So like,
yes. And also took her up to San Francisco too.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yep. Yeah. The grandpas were great too.
The grandpas were great. So the Grandma Miller, did you ever see the movie Now and Then?
Yes, but I don't remember it.
Okay. So Now and Then was like my teenage anthem. I loved that movie. I still feel super nostalgic about it, because it came out when I was 13 years old, and it's about 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it takes place during the Vietnam War too. Like, it was takes place in the 1970s. And there's one scene in the movie where they go to there's about four friends, and they go to one of the friends' grandmother's house. And played by Cloris Leachman. I don't know if you know who Cloris Leachman is, but she's hilarious comedian, famous old actress comedian in lots of stuff. But she was an old lady in this movie. Now she's ancient, but she might not even be alive anymore. I don't actually know. But anyway, she was like Grandma Miller. Like, she brought out lemonade and cookies for the girls, and then as they were drinking the lemonade and eating the cookies, she brought out a vacuum and started vacuuming up. And then
my grandma did that too. She swept under the table while we're eating. I'm like, Grandma, we're still eating. 100%. My grandma did that.
Yeah.
So I found this one article that I found. It was so super short. I don't know if it was an interview. I don't know what it's from. It's from Nerdy Book Club. I guess it's a blog. But Tracy Holczer says, she's just kind of talking about the book in general. She's like, you always are told to write what you know. I've always believed in write what you know. So she comes from a family. Let me see where it is. The main elements that stuck. Because she wrote this book a ton of times. Even one complete draft in verse. She's like, whereby I discovered I am not a poet. The main elements that stuck came from my real life childhood: a boisterous Italian family, a disabled father, and my Nani C's very large, very pink kitchen where she cooks all her delicious food. But then she says, I wrote to find answers to personal questions I've always puzzled over. How much responsibility does a child have to help with a disabled parent? Does a child play a part in his or her own loneliness? What does it mean to have a friend versus to be a friend? There are no uniform answers, of course. Our ideas about life are as unique and as individual as we are. But one of the things I held close while writing this was the idea that it's the pondering that connects us, not so much the answers. And if we look for the connections, we'll find them. And then she says, while set in 1971, during what some might consider the apex of the anti-war movement, it's not a war story. The story is about family and friendship, and the first time in a child's life when perspective is forced to expand in order to hold a new experience. So I loved that. Just kind of a little bit of her.
Yeah.
her background and
Yeah.
how much of it, like, that's such a big question, because kids who have disabled family members probably wrestle with that, like being responsible and wanting to help out, and she's experiencing it for the first time there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love this book.
Yeah, I really loved it too. It was just beautiful and gave me so much to think about and so many characters to love. It was one of those, so I started reading The Secret Life of an Octopus. What was it called? This
Soul of an Octopus?
So no.
No,
It's a
that's a
middle
different
grade book. During middle grade March, I started reading it'll come to me.
the octopus one.
The octopus one. The benefits of being an octopus.
Okay.
And I ended up setting it down because I just found it too depressing.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's a place for it and that it dealt with really important topics,
Yeah.
but it didn't have that, for me, it didn't have that middle grade magic.
Yeah.
Where, like in this book, there's some really heavy, hard things that are dealt with in this book.
Yeah.
But there's enough other things to hold on to that are light and lovely.
Yeah.
And so when I had to put that other book down because it was just so heavy and dark. And this book, while it had those really hard things and it made me weep at the end, there was so much that I just loved about it. There was so precious about it, and that felt so just wonderful. Like this is how I love hard things being dealt with in middle grade books.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, yeah, it needs that, like, glimpses of humor and glimpses of love and I don't know.
And hope in the midst of pain. And
yeah. I loved the dodgeball type game that she played with the boys on the street. I love the librarian. I love the big Italian family and the other family. Like, I love the other parents too.
And part of what I loved was the contrast between the two. Like when the Millers came to the events with the Rossis and having the polenta that everyone just ate off the table together, right? And then
they were like, well,
like looking horrified off to the side. Yeah.
And I love that big Italian grandpa keeps grape soda in the fridge for Grandma Miller. Oh, sweet. Yeah, there's a lot of really lovely parts for sure. One thing we haven't touched on is the whole superstition / I forget what she calls it, but like her coping mechanism with the rocks.
Oh yeah.
And how she kind of by the end relates it to her auntie that's a little bit superstitious. Like
and believes that she can, But and how she called it like her homeostasis.
That's what it was called. I couldn't remember the word.
Homeostasis. And that was really like her coping mechanism. Like that's just how she coped.
It was like taking a deep breath, but like feeling the rocks and counting to 10 was like her recentering herself.
Yes.
Like, I love that.
This is how I cope with it.
Yeah. I thought it was weird that Grandpa Rossi carried his wife's ashes everywhere, but then you find out that she said to do that when she was still alive.
I mean, I thought it was weird, but that's the kind of like quirky stuff that I just love. Like it's so weird, but absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. This is true. The author's note is really good. I did not understand the draft table.
I didn't either. I didn't quite know how that worked.
Like take the time to really work it out in my brain, but yeah, there's other information that's in. I love an author's note so much.
I know, I love author's notes too. I did try, like when she describes it in the book, I tried to kind of work it out in my head, but then I just stopped. I was like, this isn't making sense to me right now, so I'm just not gonna try and work it out anymore. I trust that everyone understood it back then.
There were parts that I liked, but overall, I thought it went off on too many non-important things. Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Not every book is for every person.
No, I know. I couldn't imagine either.
Yeah.
Like gathering in the living room. I love that they all come together for that. Even Josh's family. Josh and his family.
I wonder how they did, because it sounds like it was like a televised event, right?
Yeah,
I wonder how they did the draft before there was television. Like, what did they do in World War One?
I don't think there was a draft, was there? When did the draft start? I don't think there was.
America's first draft. Conscription. It's been employed in 6 conflicts. Okay. The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korean War, and the Vietnam War.
Okay. Yeah, crazy. Radio.
But it doesn't, I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, they did it radio before televised.
Radio. Okay, maybe over radio. Or maybe newspaper before radio.
3.5.
Or like Revolutionary War, maybe it was just door to door.
I know, right? You got a telegram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the chart at all. Yeah. How brave Josh was at the moment Lucy's dad talked with Josh, and how Lucy wanted to know what was said.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Josh understood that Gia was going to have a hard time, and that Lucy would understand how to be there for her. Yes.
Like, oh, Josh.
So sweet.
I hope he lived. That's where my mind went. I was like, oh, you young child.
Yeah. Those of you in the comments, have you guys read The Women at all?
I'm curious. What did you think of it, Krista?
Okay. I loved it for all of the Vietnam,
mm-hmm.
both the war, being over there in the hospital situations. So we weren't like on the front lines, but we were in combat hospitals. And her coming home and the aftermath side of things. It's typical Kristen Hanna, like tragedy after tragedy.
Oh yeah, like a little bit emotionally manipulative.
But did I cry? 100%. But also, so there was infidelity in it. And I heard from someone that it's based on the life of somebody. And if that's the case, I give it a little bit more grace. Because if it's based on that, but I did not, maybe I need to read the author's note again. I did not get that impression that it was based on a specific person. Because if it was, and that's really what happened, fine. But if it wasn't, it didn't add to the story at all. It was not necessary. It could have just been a friendship. It could have just been, you know what I mean? Like there were.
It could have made different.
It was not necessary. The book, it was impactful enough without adding. There was 2 relationships in there that I just was like, why? Why?
Yeah.
That took me, it was really frustrating for me. So I gave it 4 stars, but I did really love exploring, especially for women coming home from the war and being told over and over, oh no, there was no women in Vietnam. She's like, dude, I was just like, I'm a vet. I was there.
Yeah.
Here's my uniform. Like, here's my dog tags. But being told even the veteran, the VA, like veteran places, like she could not get the help. And she clearly had PTSD from the things that she experienced and was affected by Agent Orange and all of these things that happened to her upon coming home.
Yeah.
And the choices that she made as well. I mean, that was the time where women were just given laudanum to help with their nerves. And so the mom basically was her drug supplier and got her hooked on drugs, which then, snowballed into so many other things. So like tragedy after tragedy, right? As Kristen Hanna does, she kind of takes your heart. She's like,
yeah.
But I loved where it went.
Yeah.
I loved where it ended.
Which is also, I think, pretty typical of Kristen Hanna. Yeah. Like it never ends like she like totally manipulates your emotions, but she ends on a good note.
Yeah. But
that's the only reason I think I can handle her. I don't tend to like being emotionally manipulated.
Yeah.
But if it ends well, then I can deal with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's Sharon McMahon's book club book this semester, one of them.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear from almost everyone. If it was not a 5-star for them, it was because of the romances.
Yeah. It's 100% true. So frustrating to learn even that like the Vietnam War Memorial, we didn't go see it when you came to DC because it's on the other side of the mall. We went to the Korean War Memorial, but on the other side of the water in front of the Lincoln Memorial, on the other side of that is the Vietnam War Memorial.
Okay.
But that was not, I don't know if this is the case for all the memorials. So I say it like I'm offended on their behalf, but Vietnam vets and supporters are the ones that had to raise the money and get that built. Like the government had nothing to do with it.
Oh, really?
It's so frustrating to me.
And that's not true for the other memorials?
I don't know. Okay. So I'm just like, why? Okay. Like, ugh, it just makes me mad. The whole thing makes me so mad because these soldiers were just doing, they were still doing what they believed was right, or were drafted and had no choice in the matter, and doing what they were told. Was everything done well? And should you just blindly do what you're told? No, but like in the Army, it's a little different. I don't know. Like,
that's true.
It's so hard.
The way you're trained is
and it's the first war where video cameras and all of that was more readily accessible, because previous to that, we didn't have the technology for it. So the atrocities that probably happened in every war.
Oh, for sure.
100%, right? Like villagers and baby, like
100%
are now being publicly, which is what we see all the time now. And so the mob mentality of, oh my gosh, how can these soldiers do that? Well, they're commanded to. Like that's what they're being told to do. I don't know. It just doesn't mess with their minds too. There was one scene in the Women where these soldiers come into the hospital and you could tell that like their minds had started to slip into like that madness of war. But I don't know. It's the first time that it was like public. So public. And so it's just, but having soldiers get off the plane and be spit on and have stuff thrown at them and being screamed at, like I just can't even begin to imagine.
I know.
Like it just makes my blood boil. Oh, okay. Anyways, we're not talking about the women.
No, but I was curious about it too, because I am planning on reading it, and it does connect in certain ways.
I mean, she's a good storyteller, so it's easy. Like, I didn't want to put it down.
Yeah.
Frankie was based on 5 or 6 women. Okay. I feel like that makes more sense. Yeah. It's so sad. 5 stars for Kat. I think the first time I read it, I gave it 5 stars. I probably still would. There's so many good quotes.
Yeah, I'm giving it 5 stars. It was great.
I'm not changing my rating. I'm just giving it 5 stars. Fun fact, technically Vietnam wasn't an official war. Congress never officially declared war.
I feel like I remember that.
Yeah.
Hearing that at one point.
All right. Well, we are at an hour. I want to get the next, where is it? Hold on. So in August, right? August?
Yes.
Whatever Wednesday is closest to the 15th. I forget the date. I don't have, let me just look it up, Krista. Just look it up. It's right here. June, July, August. So the 14th. On August 14th, we will be doing a fantasy, The Castle of Tangled Magic. So you have all of June, the rest of May, all of June, all of July, and the first 2 weeks of August to read this one.
Castle of Tangled Magic.
So I'm going to try not to wait until the 10th of August to pick it up. So yeah, this is Sophie Anderson, and it's going to be a fun kind of Howl's Moving Castle-esque
fantasy.
Should be a nice, fun delight for the summer.
Yeah.
not nearly as heavy and tear-jerky as this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, family secrets, a bit of magic, and a castle that changes and moves around.
That is very Howl's Moving Castle. Is it based on Howl's Moving Castle?
No.
Was that her inspiration?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if the castle moves around or inside the castle changes, kind of like Nevermore's Hotel
Okay.
Decalion.
Yeah.
And the girl is the only one who understands the castle's ways.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. It should be.
I'm excited too. Super excited.
Yeah. Oh yes, I forgot about this. At the cafe or whatever, and him and the other children of soldiers were like, my dad's a hero or my mom's a hero. Mm-hmm. I liked that too. Thinking back on the first Gulf War and all the support that was given. Yeah, can you imagine? So opposite. Mm-hmm. Even from the time the conflict in Vietnam ended and the POWs came home, mm-hmm. the POWs were welcomed home with open arms. Yeah. So it was just that, like, just during it, that it was so hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yay, good. Hopefully we like some Sophie Anderson. Not my kind of book. I will try November's. All right, Teresa, no worries.
And I hope that Simon Sort of Says is more your cup of tea.
Yeah, contemporary. I know we had a historical, a fantasy, and a contemporary. Mm-hmm. It's good mix this year.
Yeah.
But that's it for us. We hope you guys are enjoying whatever it is you're reading.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. And send all your good thoughts and prayers for Amanda and for Katie and all that you have going on too. You guys have a lot going on right now, but we really love talking with you guys about middle grade books. So we're thankful that you're here joining in.
That's right.
And we'll talk soon in a couple months.
Yep.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.